I scheduled this today, not knowing I was going to have surgery tomorrow. So I was like, okay, God, you have such a sense of humor. So I go in at 5:45 tomorrow morning for my second surgery. And I was like, well, I'd rather be here than sitting at home. And I always like to talk about the wonderful things God's done in this journey. So here I am. So I'll kind of start back of how this happened. So last year, I did my testimony on the car accident. And it was like 2020, so we're in 2021. And we are going to be so much better in 2021. And God gave me the word courage in 2021. And I was like, okay, courage to... I started a nonprofit back in May, started in January, and Christy, who's here, was real instrumental with that. That was a big dream of mine, so like the car accident kind of propelled a lot of that. I started that. So I'm like, okay, courage. And on the actual 1-year anniversary of the car accident, I teach, and Holly, who was with me, was the assistant principal there. So I told my mom, I was like, I do not want to be at work today. So I took the day off because it's just a lot of flooding memories. And I had my normal OB appointment and my normal mammogram on the 1-year anniversary. So I went into it like normal, nothing ever, just normal stuff. Mom and I had a great day together. I get the letter in the mail. Everything's perfectly fine. Okay, great. This is good. And then on May the 24th, I actually was feeling super kind of depressed because through all of this journey of grieving and trauma, and I still have PTSD stuff and all that, I go up and down with my emotions. My husband can testify to that. And so I was like, I even texted him on 5/24, and you remember it, I said, today is a horrible day. I've got to call my doctor. Like, I was so low, and I don't know what was happening. I was so low. So I called my doctor, didn't get a nurse, didn't leave a message, okay? This is significant, okay, because this is how God works. We just have to keep our eyes open to see how he works. And so I get a 3:05, I get a phone call from Hawthorne OB, and I looked at my phone, I thought, I didn't leave a message. They have caller ID. Do they do this to all their patients? What in the world? So I was like, hello? She's like, hey, Lisa, this is Dr. Cher. I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, what? I was like, I called you today. She's like, you did what? I was like, I called you today. And she's like, okay, what's wrong? And I said, she's a couple years older than me, and I was like, I'm super down today. Can you give me some medicine? I was like, she's like, let me look. What are you feeling? Da, da, da. And she's like, but I called you to tell you that there was an oversight in your mammogram. And I'm like, an oversight? And I later found out what it was. So they found a spot, and I'm like, okay, I've had a biopsy before, so I go to get my biopsy done, and go in like normal. And then, no, I did the imaging. I did the imaging. It'll be 2 images, and we might have you on standby for an ultrasound. 8 images later, I was like, Lord, this is not right. 8 images, and they kept squeezing, kept looking, and women would appreciate all this. They kept moving in on that. I'm like, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? And so I'm not dumb, so I kind of looked over, and I saw a couple of things. And then I went back out to sit, and then within 2 minutes, ultrasound said, we need an ultrasound. And the radiologist herself did it. And already in my spirit, I was like, God's preparing. And I texted Everett, and I texted Mom, and I'm calling Mom. I'm like, nah, this isn't good. It was a preparation, and God goes before you. God goes before you to prepare you. And so they said we need a biopsy ASAP. Biopsy was Wednesday, and I found out on June 11th. How I found out was I was listening. My mom was getting ready to come over. This is my mom, by the way, if anybody doesn't know. My amazing mother. And I had my praise music on, listen to my worship music every time I get ready. And this song was on, Something Has to Break. And the words, God is my witness, I kid you not, I've journaled it all. It says, if God will bring you to it, he will bring you through it. And as soon as those words, My Wake Health pops up with a test result. And I'm like, I've got breast cancer. And I didn't even read it. It's like God's already like, I've got you. I've already got you. I've already prepared you. I'm going to get you through this. If I'm going to bring you to it, I'm going to get you through it. So I looked, I'm like, invasive carcinoma. Carcinoma means cancer. And I looked again, and then I called Mom and I lost it. Like I was doing pretty good, then I lost it. Then Everett's on a conference call with the CEO, and I'm like trying to do this mimicking, get off the phone. Bless his heart, and people that know him, he's focused, laser focused. The house could be burning down, and he is on his call, was looking at the spreadsheet. No one bothers him. So after the second time I came up, and I'm sobbing, and he kind of got the point. So that was on June 11th. So I went through the steps of all of that, and those are things you don't prepare for. You just don't prepare for those. And as I didn't prepare for the accident, I really didn't prepare for this. My mom and dad also have cancer, so I just was like, hey, let's just do a three, we get a discount. I just have to find some humor in this. But the title of what I want to talk about, so that's just a little precursor what happened. So I had my double mastectomy on August the 12th, and I start the reconstruction process tomorrow. I do not have to have chemo, which is a praise report, but I am on the borderline of aggressive hormone therapy treatment, so they're going to treat me with that. So I got my first injection pellet last week, which immediately sends you into menopause. So right now I'm currently dripping. And my kids are like, oh my gosh, Mom. My middle son looks at me and goes, I said, baby, I'm really trying. I am really trying to work on not being irritable. And he's like, Andrew, those of you that know Andrew's sweetheart, Mom, I really appreciate you trying. I was like, I'm trying. But it's that's going to be some intentionality there. So those will be injections for 5 years, and then another aromatase inhibitor for another 5 years with that. So basically cutting all estrogen out of my body is what we're going to be doing. So fun times in the Hathaway house. Okay. Y'all pray for us. Pray for my family. But wallow or worship. So what do you think about when you think of wallow? We can interact. What do you think about when you think of wallow? Girls, you've heard me talk about wallow all the time in youth group. So originally when you wallow in something, you think, I think I'm so visual. I'm so super visual, and God's blessed me with a lot of visuals. And I've visualized this big pig just wallowing in the mud, right? Mud is, it's like you're just stuck, and you wallow, and you're filthy, and you're yucky, and you can't get out, and you're just this back and forth. There's no solid ground. When your feet get just stuck. So I've had to really learn how to wallow or worship. What are we going to do? And if we choose to wallow, we choose to stay in the yuckiness of the mud, which is the yuckiness of our self-pity, right? And become used to the fact that things are going bad and become comfortable and complacent in the wallowing. I'm telling you, this past week, I have wallowed more. Everett will come to the couch at 12 o'clock. I'm like, nope, don't bother me. I'm on the couch. I'm wallowing. Just let me wallow. Let me wallow. And then I'm like, get off the couch. Enough of wallowing. I'm all in my blanket. My pillow's a certain position. I've watched so many Netflix series I can't even count. And I'm like, get up, because guess what? It's comfortable for me. I don't have to see nobody. I don't have to face anybody. I don't have to be intentional. I don't have to be super sweet. I can just be in my place of wallow. And so I think sometimes we get so comfortable and complacent in our mess, in our pity, self-pity, feeling sorry for ourselves. Oh, well, my life just stinks. This is happening. And I've done that, y'all. I've been real. The struggle has been real. I am not going to lie. Rebecca and I walked, and I'm like, girl, I am not. I can't do it. The struggle is real. I've told her that. The struggle is real. But our God is so real. In the struggle, our God is so real. And that is what I've seen. So no matter what the struggle is, no matter how low you go, no matter what you feel, God is so real. And I'm so thankful that I've had this experience because I grew up, my dad was a preacher. I grew up every time the church door's open. God's good. Have faith. Trust God. Not being offensive, but kind of the Christianese thing. What we say, how are you? I'm blessed. I'm great. But on the inside, my life stinks. Or I'm suffering. Or I'm feeling some type of way. But I think that it's okay to admit the struggle. It's okay to not be okay. And I've had to learn that too. That it's okay sometimes. Everett's like, how you doing today? I said, not good. Not good. And he sits down as calm and patient, as precious as he is. He's like, well, what to talk about it? I'm like, I don't want to talk. I just want to sit. And he's learned that from the car accident because he sat beside me like hours. We just don't talk. So I think that we have to be so careful to not let our circumstances define who we are and define what we do. And I've had to really learn that through loss, of losing Holly last year as a friend and as a person and watching every bit of that. And then now losing something as a part of me physically, as a woman. And, I've always kind of struggled with that. And I knew the day would come, God would grab my attention. And I didn't realize he was going to do it this way, but he did. And I told Everett one day, he was walking by, and I said, I have this epiphany. He's like, oh, Lord, what? I said, God's going to strip me down. He's like, what? I was like, he's going to strip me down physically and emotionally. Women and body image, and I work at a high school with high school girls who every minute of every day focus on body image, and I've fallen into that. I'm not this certain size, I'm not this certain thing, and God has allowed this to be completely stripped away, and where your physical cannot define you. So this journey has redefined me in such a way that I've had to see myself. It took me 2 weeks to actually physically see myself in the mirror. And then when I did, I melted down. And then the next day I looked and I was like, you're a survivor. And God's like, I'm using this as a part of your story. And I look at myself totally different now. Still feels a little weird, just being honest. But I'm looking at myself in such a different light because God's already used so much of this. And I never knew that being a breast cancer survivor would be part of my story. And now it is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. I understand. And the empathy that God's been able to give me through that has been so tremendous. I think that another part is we don't get to pick and choose what's part of our story. Like sometimes you're like, I want that one to be. I want this one to be. I want to be this, or I want to do this. And I have learned so quickly that we don't get to pick and choose. Whatever the story God has for us is what he has for us because he knows he's ordered our steps. He has orchestrated everything. He's gone before us. He sees the end from the beginning, and we don't. We don't. And so I'm just like, okay. Driving down the highway at 12 o'clock noon, and my whole life had changed in a blink of an eye. I had no idea that'd be part of my story. But now I can relate to these students that have PTSD. I'm like, I got you. I understand. because it's a rough school. It's a Title I school, and now I can relate. And I think that if we can take the filters off of our eyes and be able to see the way God's perspective. I had God's been downloading so many things, and he downloaded a holding pattern that I wrote about, and some of you are on Facebook. I'm not a big Facebook person, so God's really stretched me with this, but I'm having to be obedient. I'm not a big, I don't want anything to be about me. But holding pattern, I woke up in the middle of the night, holding pattern. Everett's like, holding pattern? Air traffic controllers. They see everything. You can't go, the plane can't go, you can't move this way, you don't want to run into another plane with another plane coming on the landing strip, you don't want to do anything. So the air traffic controller is God, because he sees it all. And Everett is so poignant to point out, babe, you're like holding pattern, that's what you're in. You want the end of the runway, and you're not there yet. Because God's doing amazing work where I'm at now, but it's a patient holding pattern. I'm one that dreams, and I have visions, and I am an adventurous person. Give me something to do, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to go, let's go. And God's like, stop right here. I need you to rest where you are here, because I'm going to use you. And I think we have to be so careful with that. I did want to share with you this. I don't know if some of you wrote this, but this is what I wrote the very first night in the hospital. Now, mind you, I guess I was supposed to be sleeping, and I didn't sleep all day. And he's trying to get rest, but as soon as Everett closes his eyes, he snores. Sorry. And that becomes a little bit of a problem sometimes because it takes me forever to go to sleep. I'm like, get some breathe right strips, babe. Do something. So we're in the hospital room. I'm laying wide awake. Family had left. I made relationship with this amazing CNA who was having twins. And all of a sudden it got still. And my anxiety, just like that. Satan's like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Your life just changed, and I'm going to get you right here because it's quiet and your husband's snoring. And I was like, okay, no, you're not. AirPods. I made sure Everett put my AirPods right beside me. Had them all the thing. Got out. I had my whole Soul Lifter playlist with like a gazillion songs. I'm like, okay, got any more worship music? First of all, I brought my big JBL speaker, and I thought that probably wouldn't be polite to blast it into Everett's like, we're on the cancer floor. Do not blast your JBL speaker. I'm like, I guess that wouldn't probably be wise. So I plugged my headphones in, and the music just started flooding me. That's my music is just my thing. So as I lay in the hospital bed after my double mastectomy to remove my cancer, I felt waves of anxiety come over me when the lights were out and the family left. I immediately put my AirPods in and selected my pre-made Soul Lifter worship music playlist and soaked in his presence. I can't explain the amazing touches, hugs, and tangible ways God showed up today. He is just so amazing. Sometimes it's hard to find the words to express how good God really is and how he completely sees me. I feel my heartbeat in my now completely flat chest filled with stitches and all things medical. I realized the scars I will have, and it hit me like a ton of bricks what I had lost. I felt I lost my femininity, and what I felt defined me and gave me value. And God so clearly spoke to me, what you thought you lost, you gained so much more. I don't see the outside of you. I see the heart of you and the beautiful dust I formed you in. How I value my daughter is not based on the outside. I see the broken pieces that I have made you beautiful. I see your scars, and they are going to minister to so many more people for my glory and my kingdom. Yes, tears have welled in my eyes, and I am sad. I'm a woman, and I have emotions and feelings. Yes, there has been grieving for sure, and I'm sure it will all continue to be a process. Yes, it has. But I'm quickly reminded that there is purpose in our pain. Nothing is wasted. And I know that and have seen that. He's so faithful and has proved this over and over and time after time. How can we ever doubt his unconditional love and faithfulness to us as his children? Reach for him, cling for him, look for him, fight for him, Love him, surrender to him. My Jesus is so worth it. And this was something that nothing's ever wasted. And it's hard to sometimes think that. Like, I feel like, God, what are you doing? There's been a lot in a year and a couple of months. And right before the accident, that's when I found out both my parents were diagnosed a week apart from each other. And I'm like, Lord, what are you showing me? And sometimes I'm like, did I do something? Did I do something wrong? Like, did I? God is not a God to punish you. And I think sometimes we can have that in our heads, and, society's like, oh, you must have been a horrible person, or you must have really messed up over here. Y'all, we're all broken people. We all mess up. We all sin. If that was the case, we would all be, everything would happen to us because we all mess up. And I've had to learn that it's what God had in his plan for my life. And I don't know if I'll ever see it and I'll ever understand it all. I do have this verse, it's from the Message version. I like the Message version a lot, but it's from the Message version. It says, when my soul is in the dumps, I rehearse everything I know of you. Let's dissect that. When my soul's in the dumps, which has been in the dumps. This past week, the struggle's been real. It has been in the dumps. I rehearse. What does rehearse mean? Over and over and over. You rehearse until it becomes perfect. I rehearse everything I know of you. And I'm like, God, so I have that right beside my bed. I have a little board with my scriptures and special cards people have sent me. But everything I know about you. We know that he is good. We know that he is kind. We know that he is sweet. We know that he is a God that loves and sees us. And if we rehearse it in our minds when we're in that place of suffering and in the dumps, and we feel like our life is falling completely apart, you rehearse that and don't forget it. Because God's going to bring you to a place where he's like, I've always had you. I've always had you. And I think that even in the doubt that we have, he continues to surround us. I think that I haven't really faced anger. I don't think I've really gone through an anger phase even after the car accident. The grief has been very different. I've had to learn, I am still currently in counseling, and I've had to learn to balance this different kind of grieving, and that's been new to me because I am normally a very person. This is who I am. And I've had a couple people text me and goes, I can tell something's wrong. I can tell it in your text. And I'll read back in the text, and I'm like, what did I do? Because normally it's just, I'm always giving an encouragement or just looking from a different perspective. But one thing I did the other day when I was down in the dumps, I was like, okay, Lisa, get a grip. Start looking outward and not looking inward. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to get a ton of cards, and I'm going to go write cards, and I'm going to go send cards and take the focus off of me. Because God, sometimes we have to get the focus off of and bless others in spite of our stuff. Because when we do that, then the joy comes of giving and being able to love on others, just as people have loved on us. And I that just kind of changed my whole perspective. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I love to do. So I felt so much better just by going and buying cards. But it was just, it's just taking an outward focused approach, because we can become kind of selfish sometimes and realize that we're like the only ones that have stuff going on. And no, God gives us a fresh perspective of knowing and who and praying and who the Holy Spirit can lay on our hearts to bless despite what we are going through. The valley has also been an analogy. that God's been showing me a lot. And again, I'm very visual. So this valley illustration that he gave me a couple of days ago was, I'm in this big canyon, humongous canyon. I've never been to the Grand Canyon. But anyway, this humongous canyon. And I'm sitting on the ground. And the ground is solid. It's not mud. It is solid as a rock. And I'm just sitting there Indian style, like crisscross applesauce, so you would say in school. And I'm sitting there. And Jesus is right beside me. And he's sitting crisscross applesauce. And I'm telling y'all, I've already, I told Ever this whole thing. He's like, wow. And I'm sitting there, and our knees are touching. And I'm just sitting in the valley. And God's right there. And he's just sitting beside me. He's waiting patiently. And it's okay. It's okay to sit in the valley because he's not going to leave you. I mean, he literally sat there, didn't say a word. I knew his presence was there. He was there. I look up the big canyon, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get out of here. He stands up. He says, come on, we're going. I'm like, climbing up that thing? And he's like, we're going. And you're coming with me. Grabs my hand, and we start the climb. Because God's not going to leave you in the valley. The valley stinks. But in the valley is where the fruit is produced. And Billy Graham states that mountaintops are for the view and inspiration. But fruit is grown in the valley. The mountaintop, it's beautiful. But who wants to go to the valley? But I'm glad, I'm thankful I've been to the valley. Because it's solid as a rock. And that's where God has met me the most, is in the valley. In the darkest of place. In the place where I said, God, I do not get it. Why? Why did my friend have to die right beside of me? Why? Why do I have to have breast cancer at 44? Why? But God is in the valley with you. And he sees you. He sees every bit of you. He sees exactly what you need, when you need it, how you need it. He knows exactly what to give you. You have to open your eyes to see it and choose to see it. So the wallow or worship is, it's a choice. Are we going to wallow in it? Or are we going to worship through the valley? Which one are we going to do? Which is going to make us stronger? Which is going to bring us more joy? Wallowing is doing no good. Standing in the mud, moving all around, woe is me. What good does that do our spirit? Does our spirit nothing? And people around us are like, I don't want to be around that. She just throws a pity party all the time. And people will be, I'm so real, I don't know how to be fake. So they're like, how you doing? I'm like, today sucks. Just like, I'm so real but then it's like, but it's okay. Tomorrow's a new day. Or I'll text my mom. I said, Mom, I'm fighting today. And she knows exactly what that means. I've done it plenty of times. And then she texts me every morning, how you doing? I'm like, today's a new day. It's a new day to choose, a new day to walk, a new day to get up, a new day. I'm going in tomorrow. I have no idea what I'm going to wake up with, and that's the gospel truth. Doctors are like, I'm like, what are you getting done tomorrow? Well, it's either going to be this or this. So you don't know? Nope, sure don't. Wake up 3 hours later, I'll either have, let's just be real, I'll either have implants or I'll have these tissue expanders that do whatever. I literally don't know what I'm waking up with tomorrow. How do you feel about that? Are you scared? What is there to be scared about? I don't know what I'm going into. They're just putting me under, and as long as I don't get sick, I'm fine. It's just like walking blindly. And God's taught me that. You just walk. You walk in the faith. You walk in the promises. And he's going to take you there. It's a little windy. It's a little hilly. But he's going to take you there. I love Proverbs 16:9. It says, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." We want our own plan, don't we? We want the job. We want all this. We want our own plan. And I'm working through that right now, like, going back to work. When am I going to go? And I feel like God's stirring me in a different direction. But, it's like, but the Lord establishes your steps one by one. Just keep walking. He's got you. Keep walking. Keep walking through the door. If the door's shut, you're not to be there. You just keep walking. And I think that it's like, I wrote down that I can be confident in hard circumstances and know that God plans His plans are from His perspective. What better perspective to have than God's perspective? Because He wants the absolute best for us. He allows things to happen, but He wants the absolute best for us. So what better perspective of life to have than God's perspective? And His plans from His perspective have a great purpose for both my life and others. And this is one thing I have learned, that when you go through something, it's going to minister to others. You have to allow it to, and you have to be willing. And I think that that's one thing that God's really shown me, is people have reached out to me, and this is nothing I'm doing. People have reached out to me I haven't talked to in 25 years I graduated with. And they're like, "I've been reading your blogs, and my faith has grown so much, and I wasn't ever really close to Jesus." I'm like, "I haven't talked to you in 25 years. But God knows. God knows. And God's using this for His kingdom, because we want people in the kingdom. We want people to see Jesus. We want people to know how Jesus is real. I'm like, y'all, Jesus is so real. Just trust me. I know He is so real. And until you experience something like that, you realize God is so real and intimate and personal. He is so, so, so personal. And I've, like, He parts the Red Seas, but He sees me and loves me. Like, He walks in the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but He sees me and He loves me. Like, it's just sometimes, and I wrote something about that too, but sometimes it's like, it's hard for our brains to comprehend the amount of love that God has for us and that He sees us. And I think that the one thing too is the shirt that my friend did is He is still good. Everett, would you like to model? He has the shirt on. But we both walked in my first day of surgery at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, all right, here we go. And the lady goes, "Girl, He is still good." I'm like, yes, He is. And I purposely wore that because it's no matter. He's still so good. And I think we just need to continue to remind ourselves that. And it's a reminder that He's the same God. He's the same God He was thousands and thousands of years ago. He's the same God now. He hasn't changed. We just got to become more intimate with Him and find ways to do that because He is so real. So the last thing, I know it's probably a few minutes, but so today I came in, and those of you that know Luke, my absolute precious, precious child, though he has special needs, that could be a whole nother sermon, but he's our absolute miracle boy. We were told he'd never be able to walk or talk. Clearly, the doctors were wrong. He came in today with a gushing gap on his leg because he jumped off some building. I don't know. But so he has some developmental delays. He has autism, genetic disorder. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. But I'm telling you what, that boy, I call him my Lukey Bear. I'm like the only one that does. He has such a heart for others and such a heart for God. And the purity and the innocence. And it's like he has this connection with God. And he is always so sensitive. I have like 5 feathers that he finds everywhere when he's riding his scooter at the park. an electric scooter. Mind you, probably was not a great investment, but, he's come home with busted teeth, but whatever. So he comes home with feathers all the time. So I was in there, and we were getting ready for my middle son's football game before this today, and he comes in and goes, Mom, how you doing? You ready for your big surgery tomorrow? Y'all, I'm not making this up. If we could video it, is it just like this? So I'm trying to flip my hair, still find something to wear because I don't feel really comfortable in anything, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be all right. I said, yeah, it's going to be all right. He goes, well, I made you something today. Y'all, I just can't. And this was today. This was literally 4 o'clock. I love feathers. My favorite color is purple. This is how I know God is real and God sees you. He sees me. Because this is what was given to me. That he made it therapy. He goes to therapy every day and does virtual school there. This is what he gave me. And I'm like, my 12-year-old, God is using a 12-year-old boy who said he would never be able to walk or talk. But before I knew I was pregnant, God told me in a dream, I busted up out of bed, and he said, this child will not be a mistake, and he is no accident. I had no clue I was pregnant. I get on the phone, I call Mom immediately. I'm like, oh my God, it was like this voice is speaking to me, Mom. What in the world? I've never had this happen. Mom's like, I feel in my spirit you're pregnant. I was like, oh, hush, I'm not pregnant. Andrew was 5 months old. There's no way on God's green earth. There's no way. He's 5 months old. Clear as day. This child is no accident and no mistake. And now I know why. God gave me that promise because of everything we've been through with him. Again, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day because it's miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. But he gave me this, and this is what he says. I love you so much more than anything. His spelling needs a little bit of assistance. Are you ready for this? Be strong and of good courage. My son knew my word was courage. Talk about it all the time. Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid nor be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go, Joshua 1:9. And he is reading this to me. I will be praying for you and thinking of you from Luke to Mom. God, if he doesn't see you, if you don't think that he sees you, open your eyes because God sees you. He sees every part of who you are, the depths of your spirit, your needs, your wants, but open your eyes to see. This was not by mistake. This was not by mistake. My son, who has disabilities, cared enough and loved enough and listened to God enough and has the heart of the Father enough to do this for me. I'm not anything special, but he did this for me. And I was standing there in the bathroom, I'm like, God, you see me. You see me. As I go in for surgery tomorrow, I know that God is working, and he's working in my family, and he's working in my kids, because guess what? If this isn't a witness or a ministry to my children, I don't know what else is. Because they're watching how I walk through this. So when they're faced with stuff, they know how to, wow, Mom and Dad did this. Mom and Dad are real. We have a very open, we have 12, 13, and a 16-year-old. We talk about anything and everything. And they see me when I cry. Of course, my daughter, who's 16, does have zero emotion. She's like, oh my God, stop crying. Why are you crying all the time? I'm like, welcome to menopause. So we're going to have so much fun. I'll need a couple of Diet Cokes every day. That's my go-to. Give me McDonald's Diet Coke, I'll be fine. And so I just want to close and just hoping that you find some hope that when you go through dark times, whatever your journey is. We all have different journeys, and each is real to each of us, whatever your journey is. Mine just happens to be this. Mine just happens to be what I went through last year, which is still a part of this journey. But whatever your journey is, remember that God sees you. And in the valley, you can choose to wallow or you can choose to worship.